Hey, and welcome to Runway Audio's second episode of our brand new podcast. Today we have Elijah Buist, our resident cable builder. If you've ordered a cable recently, he's the one that's built it and shipped it out to you. So we're grateful to him for that. Today we're going to have him talking about worship music and tracks with the worship band, and also kind of get into what kind of gear he loves and what his favorite pieces of gear that he has in his rig. So yeah, let's get started. Let's kind of talk through your rig and see where you're at now and what kind of things make you happy and your favorite pieces.
Yeah, so more often than not, I'm starting my signal chain with either my Bluesman Strat or a Gretsch double anniversary, and I'm running that into my board, which has, I start off with a compressor, the Walrus Deep 6, and then I go into a J-Rocket Archer, into a King of Tone, and then a Broken Arrow from Jackson. And then from there, I go into the Stomp, HX Stomp, and in the loop, I have the Source Audio Nemesis and Ventress for my delays and reverbs. Usually in stereo, sometimes not. Just depends on the week. Yeah, and I'll run those into either my Bassman direct, or I'll go into the house amp, normally a Princeton.
Very cool.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. What is like your favorite pedal that you have on your board, or ones you don't even have on your board right now, maybe?
I would have to say for overdrive, the King of Tone is definitely one of my favorite. While overhyped, it's still great. It's great. And probably could not live without the HX Stomp at this point. Like, it does everything.
What's the main thing you use the HX Stomp for?
So for my electric rig, I do the modulation and going direct when I can't use a house amp or just for whatever reason. And then I use it for acoustic as well. I run IRs and effects that way.
Very cool.
But yeah. Mostly just whatever I need it to do. It does all of it.
That's awesome. That's fun. When do you kind of decide which guitar that you want to use between the two? How do you make that decision?
It's usually based on, I look at the set and like the type of parts I'm going to play, whether they're more ambient or more drive, and then lead or rhythm. And sometimes just based on what the other guitar player is playing. If he's playing a Strat, I'm not going to double him with a Strat.
Yeah.
But
are you like picking one guitar for a whole set and using that whole guitar, or are you swapping guitars mid-set, mid-song?
I typically switch depending if there's like a feature song at the end of the set, or like the first song is quite different from the rest of the set, I'll switch. Cool. Probably more for fun than than just tone.
Kind of fun to pick up a new guitar.
Yeah.
It feels brand new, feels different. Kind of a new sound. That's fun. That's awesome.
Sure.
So what MIDI controller do you use on your board? You mentioned MIDI.
So I use the Morningstar MC6. I use that to control the Source Audio, Ventress, and Nemesis, as well as the Stomp. I definitely send BPM, and I change presets on all of them. So what I typically do is I have 4 delays and 4 reverbs kind of saved on each of those pedals, and I'll just cycle through them with the MC6. And then I have used it to like trigger stuff on the Stomp, like a second delay. I'll usually turn that on for more swells or more ambient things. I'll use that to turn it on and off.
Yeah. Do you normally like tap in the delay or tap in the BPM, or do you set it based on the tracks and based on the song?
I usually make presets on the MC6. So I have 3 foot switches, which is typically how many songs we do in a set. I'll program each of them to send a MIDI BPM clock to all 3 pedals.
Cool. Easy enough.
Yeah.
So you mentioned doing tracks with a church called Crosspoint that's here locally in Nashville. What does kind of a week-to-week look like with stuff like that, with working on tracks with them?
Yeah, so I do the tracks weekly for usually any event that's not like a main Sunday. So like students every Wednesday, college nights when they come up, things like that. I program the Ableton tracks for the week for each campus, as well as send band leader notes, kind of work on arrangements and transitions, and kind of in Ableton mostly.
So what is setting that up, kind of, what does it look like from start to finish?
So when I start with a blank Ableton session, and I go in and put in the stems for each song as well as click and cues, and those are kind of preset. Depends on the week. If we do a new song, I'll end up having to make a new session and import that in. And then I basically just craft each transition to be somewhat seamless and not distract, but still flow from one song to the next.
And then where do you get most of the stems? Where do those come from?
Those come from the other Ableton guy that does the Sundays.
Oh, cool.
It's just a big Dropbox folder.
So has he like produced them, or do you get them from like, Worship
It's
Online,
a mix.
or like?
So sometimes they come from multi-tracks, or they come from, he'll make songs. It just depends on the song. There's like a big library.
Yeah, that's fun to kind of tap into.
Yeah.
And then how do you decide what stems you use and what you don't use?
Yeah, so first off, it's seeing who's on that week. Sometimes we're missing a guitar player, missing a drummer, because there are 4 campuses each week that have live worship for students. So depending on what personnel is there, and then depending on the set list itself. So like if we're going for a more stripped back acoustic thing, taking some of the tracks out, like synths, drums, or just kind of depends on the week. Yeah.
So the 5 campuses, like you said, is it simulcasts? So you're all kind of doing the same thing at the same time, correct? So you have to schedule it or build it out at the right time frame.
Yeah. So on Sundays, the message is a video feed, but all of the worship is live independently. And then for Wednesdays, it's kind of similar. It's almost like its own campus, really. So we have worship. It's not really synced up with all the other campuses, but we start at the same time. And the message each week is either a live person at that campus or a recorded message.
Cool.
Yeah.
What are kind of the struggles with simulcast stuff on the Sunday? I know you don't do that as much, but like what are kind of the roadblocks?
Honestly, it would be, from what I've seen, is some of the technical difficulties of being synced up. It's quite difficult, with timing wise, because you're trying to figure out the technology and figure out how it's connected, but at the same time, services start in 30 minutes and we're still not synced up with Nashville. We gotta figure out how to fix that. But
so is the Ableton synced, or is it they're still just people pressing basically the space bar?
Ableton across each campus isn't synced, but there are times we've done it for feature songs and things where it's synced with each campus or it's synced with the message itself, so we'll all independently sync to the message.
Cool.
For a feature song or a closer or
interesting.
Whatever.
That's fun. It's interesting to see what churches kind of do, because Church of the City, the church that I go to here, there's 3 campuses, but there's different kind of, they don't simulcast stuff. They all
right.
3 totally different things. They do the same songs every once in a while, but it's interesting to see kind of a church doing it all in the same fashion, the same these 3 songs message, and doing it together, which is really cool. It's kind of fun to make a community of hey, doesn't matter what campus you're going to, you're still getting the same good, great content, which is awesome. Yeah. Which is hard to do with more rural campuses compared to the Nashville downtown big campus. That's really cool to see.
Yeah.
For people that are interested in tracks and stuff like that want to get their church or their band kind of rolling on that side, because tracks really make a band sound way fuller. Even if you have this really small band, you can make it sound like a really nice big band. Where does someone start with that? What's a good starting block for people like that want to get into it?
Yeah, I think honestly one of the best places to start is I don't want to always start with gear, but making sure you have the setup for it. So even if it's just a small interface with 2 channels out, 3 channels out, you can still run tracks. It's pretty feasible that anybody at this point can run tracks.
Yeah, because
even if it's from an iPad.
Yeah,
headphone out.
Basically, you need 1 channel at minimum for your actual tracks going to front of house, and you need another channel for your click and your guide to make sure that your band stays on track. So minimum 2, preferably 3, because then you can stereo your tracks. But
and then if you really want to get complicated, like we do, we have sends for each channel. So we have an EG send, EG1 and 2, bass, keys, piano. I think it's like 14 sends we have, and they're all independently controlled at front of house, but it's pretty complicated.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, you can get as complicated as you want to. I'm sure you can.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on the interface you have, but I'm sure you can get 30, 40, 50, 60 track channels if you really wanted to.
Really get crazy and use Dante.
Yeah.
Go over network.
Yeah, you just don't have to worry about it. It doesn't matter how many channels it is.
Yep.
It just is. Yeah, it's cool. It's kind of, it depends on how big you really want to go with it.
Yeah. And then on the other side with the actual tracks themselves, like you can build them out yourselves, or you can even, it's pretty affordable now, even with like places like Loop Community or Multitracks. They have subscription based, things like that. And it's kind of cool because once you build a library, you don't have to do it every single time.
Yeah. What do you like recommend? Ableton as the best option, or do you recommend like is Logic or Pro Tools an okay option?
In terms of like DAWs, I think that Ableton is probably the best, most fully featured out of all of the options. But if you're looking for a simple option, even Loop Community has an app. I think it's called Prime, which is really easy way to get into it. You could run it from an iPad, run it from a phone. And I think Multitracks has an app as well, which is easy. But,
yeah, Multitrack has an app, then you can do it through an iPad, and they have like an iPad interface that they even mentioned on their website. We'll have a link in the description here to check it out.
Yeah.
Just want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this podcast, episode 2. We have Interchange Noise Works. Really great friends of ours. They're here in Nashville. JJ is the owner and designer. Really nice guy, really fun guy. But he makes, this is the on air. We have the Element 119, and we have the brand new, they're the 123 series. They're a line of fuzzes, and they're really awesome. They're very different. I mean, if you're into fuzz, they're way more creative than what is normally on the market. So definitely check them out, interchangenoiseworks.com. So you've been at Runway for a little bit. How have you liked working here? What's kind of been your favorite parts?
Yeah, it's been really great being here, making cables. It's really fun hanging out with you guys and getting through the orders. Yeah, I think my favorite part, probably just hanging out, making cables.
I like to think we have a good time.
Yeah.
Honestly.
It's a really good work environment.
Yeah. What's your favorite cable to make, as boring as that sounds?
Probably a 15-foot instrument cable.
It's very weird.
Straight to right angle.
In the length.
Yep.
Like 10 foot's
Any color.
boring. 20 foot's
Yeah.
pretty boring. 15 foot's perfect.
10 is a little too easy.
Okay.
Yeah. So just 15.
That's fine. So instrument cable versus the XLR stuff. Yeah. A little bit easier, I guess.
Yeah.
So thanks for being here. Really appreciate you chatting with me about tracks and your rig.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Please make sure to subscribe for future podcasts. We have a really cool one coming out next month. That is with Interchange Noiseworks, with JJ of Interchange Noiseworks. He's really fun. He's going to be really fun to chat with. Some good information, some cool stuff about kind of a startup pedal company in this very complicated gear world. So make sure to subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, subscribe on YouTube. Reach out to us on Facebook and Instagram if you have any questions, comments, concerns. We'd love to get back to you and kind of know what you guys are wanting to see and any questions that you may have. And also make sure to subscribe to our email list on our website, runwayaudio.com, and we like to put out some kind of fun extras with this podcast. So runwayaudio.com and pick up your new favorite cable. Thanks.